afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm looking at the names to see if anybody looks familiar. My name is Jessica Chance. I'm one of the folks that work at the Emerson College Career Development Center, class of 2000. And so it is really exciting to be here for Emerson Week, the second day of Emerson Week. So welcome. What I want to do is just to kick things off to let you all know, be sure to keep yourselves muted. We want to make sure that there's minimal distractions, and by all means, feel free to keep your cameras off as well. We're going to have a great group today to talk about a really important topic that we know can feel very elusive to many Emerson alumni and folks in general, to be honest. And so that's just something that can throw us off a little bit when we're trying to establish a community, a career community, as we like to call it. But we're going to talk about that, and we'll leave some time for Q&A towards the end. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat. And we will get to as many as we can towards the end. So we have with us today the wonderful Lily Mendez, who is the president and CEO of Mass Mentoring, wearing the beautiful Emerson purple. So I had to give that shout out. And Lily will be talking all things relationships, mentorship, things of that nature, and is a part of Mass Mentoring. Like I said, president and CEO, and Mass Mentoring is a huge component for working with youth development through mentoring. And she'll be moderating a panel of 3 incredible alum that work in education, film development, and community engagement. And so we're very excited to have all 4 folks here. And Lily, I will pass it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. And hello, everyone. Special shout out to class of 2019, 2020, 21. I understand that several of you were able to wear your robes downtown recently, and I know that must have felt so good. So we celebrate you, and we celebrate the alum that are on the call as well. This is the Emerson family. And we, as you can see, those of us that have left the university, there are some great people that are still doing great work there, and Jessica is among them. So this is a real thrill to be here with you. I would like to introduce you to this illustrious panel. Also alums of Emerson who have taken what they've learned and applied it to their careers. And I'm going to start by introducing you to Maddie Breland. Maddie studied producing for film and TV at Emerson. After graduating, she moved to LA, where she began her career as a development assistant at Fox 2000, eventually moving on to work for president of Walt Disney Live Action Features, where she was promoted to development coordinator. And she is now currently the director of development at Dean Dubois' company, Anvil Pictures. There, she will produce and develop live action and hybrid content as part of their deal with Universal, where she will put into action her passion for making content that promotes underrepresented groups. So welcome, Maddie. Our next panelist is Trisha Fontilla. She's a community and customer experience consultant. She has held roles at various Boston startups, including head of community and customer experience at Freight Farms, Global Director of Community at Startup Institute, and Vice President of Community and Customer Experience at VSnap. Trish also creates Filipino food experiences through Fonte's Kid, and in addition to being CEO of Boss Filipinos, a community focused on elevating Filipino culture through events and programming in Boston. She mentors women entrepreneurs in the Babson College Win Lab, supports girls in tech through the Technovation Challenge, and serves on the Young Leadership Board of Rescuing Leftover Cuisine. And she studied writing, literature, and publishing. And then our last panelist is Tim Brenner, who began his career running his own production company before getting hired by his biggest client, Harvard University. He then helped shape the future of higher ed by designing and producing online courses for BU using the edX platform. Tim is now pursuing a career in user experience design to make better products and improve people's lives, and he majored in visual media. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to read folks' credentials, because part of the conversation that we're going to have today is how they navigated their career so far, how they have been, how mentoring impacted their lives. And frankly, many of them have gone on, many of you panelists have gone on to mentor others. So the three of us, the four of us are going to pretend that we're sitting around a table. I've got my glass of water. Part of mentoring is keeping it real, is having vulnerability, right? Is opening your heart and your mind to connect authentically with people. So as Jessica said, at Mass Mentoring Partnership, we believe in relationships and we believe in creating social capital. We work with organizations and companies that are focused on everything from, I would say, 6 years to 25 years. And we believe that everyone has the right to have people invest in them. And so that's part of this conversation. So let's just do a little bit of level setting today. The way we're going to use the term, the way we're going to define mentoring, just because I've noticed that through my life and through my work experience, people kind of take that word and you sort of define it by your own experience. So let's at least just some level setting about what we mean in this conversation. So mentoring is a partnership in which active sharing of experiences and information takes place in an open environment where one or both participants increase in knowledge, improve skills, and undergo growth. Okay, so that's going to be our working definition for this conversation. I'm going to say, if you learn like me, I learn from mistakes. I don't learn from from getting it right all the time. So I'm going to speak a little bit about what it's not for this conversation. Mentoring in this conversation is not networking, as most people define networking. That is a whole other space. It is not how many business cards you can collect by the end of the evening. It is not holding a conversation with someone and looking over their shoulder to see who is the most powerful person in the room. What mentoring is, and when it is most powerful, is an authentic exchange, a meaningful connection that is most powerful when it includes a level of accountability. So when that person that's mentoring you and you're in a mentoring relationship with, there's a level of honesty and accountability. They're using their knowledge, life experience, and social capital to create increased opportunity. That's how, hopefully that sits with folks for this conversation. How to be mentor ready. And I'm going to ask the panelists to walk through sort of their own experience about how they showed up in these relationships. What we would say is when you want to engage in a mentoring relationship, manage your expectations. And I love to say it's like the first day when you showed up in your dorm room in your apartment, and if you come up to your roommate that you just met and you say to that roommate, or that roommate says to you, oh my gosh, we're going to be the best friends for the next 4 years. I'm going to name my kid after you. I'm sure you would run out of the room. I know I would run out of the room. And sometimes we engage in these conversations with all of this expectation that we're placing on someone else. And so I would say to be mentor ready is that you want to make sure that you manage that. And there's certain ways in which you can approach those relationships. There's the sponsor who helps you get visibility and exposure. And that's a good mentoring dynamic. There's the teacher that teaches new skills or provides knowledge you are seeking. And that's a good mentoring opportunity. There's the informer who shares specific information about career and areas of interest. There is the advisor, someone who knows your work, has similar experiences, and is willing to share lessons. And then there is the connector, the one that opens channels and creates opportunity for you to engage with other people. That's it. That is the primer. That is my last lecture here. Now we're going to do a deep dive into conversation. I've had the great pleasure of speaking to all three of you earlier in the week and last week, and really just honored to have you here. So let's start with, Trish, let's start with you. You and I had a conversation about how, frankly, your Emerson community showed up for you and really created that type of mentoring relationship. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about specifically, so I graduated writing, literature, and publishing, and I minored in psychology and performance studies. So I went to the full Emerson buffet and had a great time. And I actually, when I graduated from college, I had some family stuff that happened and I had to find a job really quickly. And so right after Emerson, I had gone to the LA program, was thinking I'd go back to LA, and then life as it does, happens. No matter how you lay your plans out, life happens. And I had been working 3 jobs at the time because I just had to get jobs right after college. And I went back and visited, and the dean of students, who was then Rod Lundman, was like, you're working 3 jobs. What's going on? Like, tell me what's going on. And so he was super wonderful and told me about opportunities at Emerson to that one, like, fit my interests, had health insurance, which is great for a lot of folks, something to consider when you're looking for a job. But he was like, I know a lot of stuff is happening in the world right now for you. Come back home, come work with us while you figure out what's going on in your life. And so I was very, very lucky for him to say that to me, but also is, a lot of what Emerson is, you're learning a lot, but also making sure that you're going out and helping in the community. And I'm sure everyone's been in your friends' video productions and music videos, and making sure that you maintain those relationships. So for me at Emerson, I was in orientation. I made sure to keep up with people even after orientation, making sure that those relationships were still there, even outside of, August and September, or even, when we're training. So I was very, very grateful for him to reach out to me and talk to me about that. But if I didn't volunteer and help around campus, he wouldn't have known, what was going on in my life, and made it a comfortable enough space so that I could return back to campus and say, hey, here are the things that are going on. So super, super grateful for him. I know he's not there anymore, but Sharon Duffy is still around as well, I believe. And she was really wonderful to me as well after I graduated. So yeah.
So Trish, I hear you say you were engaged, you made yourself known, you made yourself available, but I would imagine you also made yourself somewhat vulnerable, because you shared some of the challenges that you were facing that were standing in the way of you succeeding. And you opened yourself up to having that person come in and provide you the access, the support, the social network that he had to give.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, we all want to be noticed, and, some of us are trained to see different body language and recognize that in people, but we also have to be vulnerable and ask for help when we need it, because I feel like a lot of Emersonians, there is this, it's also Mental Health Awareness Month, there's a lot of performativity that comes with a lot of what we do. And so looking at someone like me that was doing orientation and doing a lot of stuff around campus, you're like, oh, Trisha's set. We don't have to, she doesn't need extra help. And if I didn't reach out, I think a lot of folks would have been like, oh, Trisha will be fine. She's always been really involved. But you have to be vocal about what you need, whether that's, going through like that, whether it's promotions, whether it's, getting more resources from people that are in your mentors advisory board, et cetera, connectors. Being vocal about what you need and identifying that is definitely important.
Thank you. Now, Maddie, you and I had a conversation, and I believe the sentence you used was that you did not have sort of the traditional path or the known path in identifying mentors at work. And you went back to LA, right? You did your semester abroad from what I recall. You went back to LA, went right into the industry. And what did you encounter, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, so I mean, getting right back into it, yeah, I don't think I had necessarily the traditional path, in that I just kind of was, I don't know, banking on a lot of the relationships that I had made during my time in the Emerson LA program. As soon as I came out, I, did what was sort of, suggested to me from the program of reaching out to everyone that, I had met and connected with while I was in the program, and sort of using those relationships as sponsors and advisors and people and informers, and also people to connect me to potential opportunities. And that practice has really served me throughout my career, and to get me to where I am today. It's always been sort of coming at people that I know, that are familiar with my work, that are familiar with the trajectory that I'm trying to achieve, and asking those questions, to what Trish was saying, being really vocal about, what you want to do, where you want to go, also where you don't want to go, and trying to create the path for you, because it is, various industries, they're very competitive, and it's helpful to have more than just words on a page to get you where you want to be. It's not always your resume. A lot of times it is someone sponsoring you or speaking on your behalf, and you have to earn that capital with those people. That's not going to come after one coffee necessarily. It involves checking in, and not just saying, hey, I need a job, but checking in, with a little bit more behind it of, hey, I saw you were working on this TV show. I'm really into it. Can we talk about that process? Or, oh, I'm working on this script. Maybe it's something interesting to you. I'd love to know what you think. And then on the back end of that conversation, it's like, I'm kind of seeking other opportunities. I'm trying to make a connection at this specific company. What would you advise? And they can offer, the connection or the opportunity if they have one to offer. But, having a series of those conversations can serve you well. And that's kind of what my path was.
So Maddie, was every person you reached out to in every conversation a love connection?
No, no, it wasn't. They were not. There were definitely some emails that were not responded to. There were some just like blanket statements. A lot of times people, it is sort of, you realize how some people are more performative in their, desire to be helpful. It's like, yeah, of course, send me that. I'll shoot it over here. And, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. You're like, I kind of never heard back about that, but on to the next one. And you can't really put all your eggs in one basket with any opportunity. And so, you put yourself out there, you be vulnerable, as we've discussed, and you see where everything takes you. And just try to keep your integrity. If you're gonna make a promise or say you're gonna do something, stick up with that, because make sure you're on the right end of things. Even if the people that you reach out to aren't always. They have other things going on, and maybe, I know Lily would talk about sometimes assuming that someone is a mentor to you when maybe those expectations weren't clearly known. And so that's something I think is really important to think about, which I hadn't really even considered until Lily and I spoke. Make sure that you're clear on your relationship and what those transactions really are based on. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maddie. Spot on. Tim, so we had a great conversation about here you've been mentoring others, and now you're in a position where you're being mentored, like actively being mentored. How's that showing up for you?
It's going well. In fact, I should update you from our conversation, which was less than a week ago. I had reached out to someone to, re-enter the mentorship side of things, and she got back to me, and we're now setting up a more formalized mentoring each other type of relationship. And we set up, right. So like, I feel like I want to, like we had mentioned it, I said, oh, I sent an email out yesterday. And since that conversation.
Well, Tim, I'm sorry, you got to neck that down a little bit. So just give us a little, like, what did you say in the email broadly? And then what was her response? And how have you set up expectations?
Yeah, so we had met via coffee, more of on the networking side of things, but I feel like she was doing something that I was interested in. We had more of a connection, a work type of connection that I felt like I could learn a lot from. And so she was already, X number of years down the path ahead of me. And that was something that intrigued me. So there was follow-ups to say, hey, how you doing? Connect on social media. And then started to reach out, putting in on a formal side for me, I put like little reminders in my Gmail and in my calendar just to be like, oh, it's time to reach out, and did that for a little while. And then she had a program that totally out of the blue that she said that I should apply to, which was ironically a mentorship program. So like a lot of meta mentoring type of stuff happening here. Ultimately, I didn't get the position. So what I decided to do is like thank her for even thinking of me, which is just amazing to be what Trish said earlier. It's nice to be recognized. So she recognized me, so I thanked her for that. And then had a little back and forth, and then said, hey, well, you had this very formal workplace mentoring thing that I liked that it didn't fall through. Hey, what do you think if we start up our own, informal mentoring? Would you be interested in that? Question mark. Very straightforward, very like one sentence. That paragraph was all about that. She got back to me and said, sorry, I didn't get it, which was nice as well. And then she said yes. So then I followed up with like, hey, what's a good time frame for us to consider going into a dialogue where you can help me guide me on my path, as well as engage into a conversation about the things that I'm trying to learn. And she said yes to that too. So I took on the responsibility of, hey, don't worry about reaching out to me. Like, you're the mentor, I'm the mentee. Like, I will take on the responsibility of like reaching out in a couple months or whatever you're comfortable with. I'll be that person to take on that responsibility. So no skin, like, just don't worry about it. Like, and I tried to make that as clear as possible, like I am right now. Like, don't go. I found it. Like, don't leave. So I was just trying to like make it as easy as for her as possible. And then I followed up with one more piece, which was, I'm in a certificate program that's directly into her line of work. So I was like, what I want to talk about when I reach out to you is, can we see what I've learned in this certificate program, which is what happens in real life? Like, that's how I worded it. I was like, the stuff that you learn in college may not actually be what happens in the real world. There's definitely tools there, and you have a toolbox, but like, it's more formalized in the academic setting. So I put it on, again, on myself to be like, this is what I'd like to talk about in this amount of time.
Tim, I love this. So not only did you identify the person, with a very clear sense of what is it that you wanted to get in the exchange. You actually went a step further, and you went and said, will you mentor me? That could go either way, but you got the response that you wanted, and you made sure that you set parameters, expectations, and you made it easy for them. Right? I mean, when we have to remind folks that unless you are in a very formalized mentoring approach in your company or your work, most people are volunteering their time. Right? I mean, they're just giving of themselves. And so part of being mentor ready is understanding that dynamic. So how about do mentors, in your experience, do they have to look like you? Do they have to be, can you tell me about maybe some mentoring that you received that was sort of unexpected? Not necessarily who you would say, hey, this is going to be a real sort of, and this is a question for all three of you.
Can I plug Emerge a little bit? I'm sure some Emersonians might appreciate this. So flipping to being on the mentor, I had some people reach out to me via Emerge, and I'm a dad in the suburbs, and these are college students in the city. So like, we're very different life experiences and all that kind of stuff. So I got some reaches out and reached back, and we had some conversations. They're very brief, but like, they were very mentor-esque. And so absolutely not would be my answer.
Maddie, Trish, anything you want to add? I know, Maddie, you have a new work boss, but also someone who's really investing in you in a mentoring way. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that was unexpected. I didn't know that necessarily going into it, but it was something that, moving from a larger studio environment to a smaller production company, I knew was going to be very important to my environment and to my working relationships, to be so, intimate in like a 3-person group. So when I was connecting with my boss, even in my interview, I made it very clear what my priorities were in terms of the content that I wanted to make and the voices that I wanted to amplify, and how I wanted to be progressive with our movies and our stories and TV. And, you know, in a surprise, I mean, I wasn't sure, but he was very much receptive to that, and has continually, as I've been working with him, been shown gratitude and appreciation for how I continue to live up to those and to make those priorities part of my everyday work. And it's just nice, again, like kind of to Trisha's point of like, you know, being recognized, because that was something in my previous experience that almost put me in a corner. You know, it was like, what, you're different. You're not saying, you know, the things that we want to hear. What's that about? Get on board. And so now the things that I thought were making me unsuccessful are now making me more successful. And so, you know, that just shows the shift in support and what that can mean, and how just your working environment can, and the people within it can either, you know, kind of make or break you a little bit. But defining that for yourself is really important. And then looking for that and being able to recognize those red flags, which was a journey for me. I did not know it going into it because I was so eager to please and to be successful in the group that I was in, that I was ready to mold myself into whatever shape was necessary to do that, and not realizing that I'm just fine in the shape that I am at. And that's why I'm hired, is to represent a different piece of the puzzle. And so now that I have that knowledge, I'm able to take that, and I found a partner, I found somebody that's willing to support that. So, yeah. That's
great. And you bring a couple of points. One is, as we define mentoring, we always think of it as like a power imbalance. So people kind of automatically assign that, but there is also such thing as peer mentoring. That there's an opportunity to learn from your peers. Maddie, you and I talked a little bit earlier about that. Like there were folks that literally had your position, right, if I recall correctly, but had been there longer than you, but the same position, but were able to kind of give you some insight around culture, and other unspokens that doesn't necessarily show up in the HR manual at a company, right? So Trish, you have mentoring right in your bio. So tell us a little bit about how you're mentoring.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, you know, when you said people that don't look like you, I've been in tech for the past 10 years. So I am almost always, or in the past have almost always been the only person of color or the only woman in the room. And combine those two, I think I've only like jokingly talked about being mentored by this other Filipina, because I'm Filipino, but she works for a public company. And so we talk sometimes, but she's like the occasional person I'm trying to think of the right word. You gave us this really great, like, what are the different types of mentors in your life? I'm like, what would I file under? Every time I speak to her, it's great, but we don't have any like sort of cadence together. So for me coming up, what was really great is I had a lot of sponsors. So I didn't have a lot of people that necessarily knew what I did, or coming from early stage startups, I was the first employee, or, you know, latest, maybe 30th employee. So when I got hired to go and run and do the thing, as opposed to having someone within the organization that was going to mentor me and tell me what to do. It was very much go experiment. If you fail, figure it out, and then come back with the results. So I had a lot of sponsors and people that opened doors for me, which was really wonderful. But I also wanted to pay it forward. I think Boston in particular, at least in the startup scene, is very pay it forward. So I wanted to make sure that everything that I was learning, I was bringing back into the ecosystem and helping people in places that I wish I had when I was coming up. So for example, if anyone's interested in tech or startups, there is a huge accelerator called Mass Challenge. It's actually a global accelerator. And I was one of the co-founders of the Women in Mass Challenge group. So we put together peer mentors, entrepreneurs, people that were early stage employees to connect and learn from each other. Because when I was in that space 10 years ago, 10 years ago next month when I first moved in, I used to take calls in the bathroom because there were so few women that I wouldn't get walked in on for 30 minutes. And so I would take calls in the bathroom. So stuff like that is really important to me. Technovation, which you mentioned my bio, is for middle school and high school girls. It was actually the first program I started mentoring in because I did have kind of intense imposter syndrome when I first got into startups. And a friend of mine was like, these are middle school and high school girls. You are this 20-something person. I promise you there's stuff you can share with them that they don't know. I was like, are you sure? I don't want to like poison the youth. So Technovation was the first place I got to mentor. So it's middle school and high school girls, and they create STEM apps that are focused on a community issue. And so I was just helping them on the tech side, come up with their name, just all these little bits and things. And it helped me realize, oh, no matter where you are, you're always able to give something back to someone. Even when I was talking to CEOs, you know, they have more experience than I do, but I have people that CEO could potentially hire. And so I'd say at the end of our conversation, are you hiring? Do you need me to test your app? Are there things that are within my abilities that I can give back to you for this conversation? So for me, I'm always thinking about the ecosystem. So whenever someone takes a chance and talks to me, I'm very much thinking about, okay, where else can I pass this knowledge down? Because if it just lives with me, you know, that's more work for me actually. So how can I spread this knowledge and how can I pay it forward? And so for anyone that is like interested in mentoring, I would, you know, really recommend looking at middle school or high school to start off with, and also looking to your peers, because, you know, there are those really great people in our lives that are really positive, but also, you know, those people that can give us constructive feedback as well. Although I have an advisory board. I always have that person that's like, Trish, you're amazing. Like everything is awesome. So it's great to have that person, the hype person. But we all have those friends that are like, that was great, but here are a couple of things I would give you feedback wise. And that's really important to have, you know, peer mentors as well. It doesn't always have to be someone that is older than you.
Trish, you bring up a really good point around, you know, it's the best relationships are a full circle, sort of 360, where you can take the praise, and also where someone is frankly invested in you enough to tell you when you're kind of like not being your best self. You know, so I think about in my career, a couple of things. One is for the audience, for those of us who are hanging with us for this conversation, thinking of mentoring sometimes as a season. So, and being okay with that, because sometimes, I mean, I don't know how many years I'm into my career. I don't know, 25 maybe. I shared with you that I can look back and say, geez, I remember I was mentored. That person meant, I would not have called them my mentor. They didn't call themselves their mentor, but the way the relationship unfolded and that deep investment. And some of them were not easy in the sense of, you know, I mean, I can tell you every constructive criticism that like bit me in the tail, and I was like, damn it, that I wasn't really ready to hear. But I look back and I go, you know what, that was really, they took a risk. They took a risk in giving me that feedback. And outside of a job, we're not talking about employment performance. We're talking about a real sort of, I care about you. This is the way you're showing up. May I suggest you consider these other things? And so for, you know, for everyone here, you know, that's part of the equation as well. That's part of the equation. So Maddie, as you're, so as you're, you know, as you're looking at how is your construct of what it means to be mentored maybe changed or expanded as you're now looking back at the last couple of years since Emerson?
Yeah, since Emerson. I mean, a lot has changed, because I think, like you said, coming into it, I was very much approaching it from that networking aspect of it, of like, okay, who do you know? How do we connect? Like, how do we, you know, help each other? How do we grow together? And so, but I think it's definitely expanded. And I think that, you know, speaking to the peer mentor, like, if I didn't have some of my peer mentors, I don't know how I would have survived some of these days, because there are people that are very much in the same space that I'm in, And I can realize, okay, the stresses and the tension and the issues, the frustrations that I'm having are not just my own. Like, I'm not in a bubble by myself, and that there's other people that are going through it, and they have their own best practices and techniques and things that they are utilizing in their, you know, day-to-day work, life, or just in life in general, actually, you know. And so now that I've had that experience, I feel like I can be a better mentor myself, because I can suggest, okay, it's not just about the people in power, but it's also finding your tribe, like finding the people that, because they're going to stick with you throughout your career, throughout your life. And building that is just as important as finding those like elevated sponsors. So yeah, I think I kind of like to just find a balance, I think, with the mentoring of, you know, the people that are very close to you, the people that are a little bit higher up, but also what's managing that give and take, and being more of a, you know, paying it forward, like Trish was saying. I love doing that, and Emerge is great for that. I love talking to these like freshmen that I would never have reached out to an alumni as a freshman at Emerson, but like they're doing it and I'm so impressed with it. And the conversations and the things that they're thinking about. I kind of tell them just enjoy being at Emerson right now, but you know, I think they're thinking ahead, which is incredible.
So thank you. So Trish, you set something off when you use the term imposter syndrome. I'm seeing it in the chat. And you know, we could all sit here and be like, oh yeah, you know, yep, I get that. You know, so the question is, how do you overcome the imposter syndrome and when you approach someone to be mentored or to want to engage in a mentoring relationship as the mentee? Who wants to take on the imposter syndrome?
I will say a little something. I feel like you can't deal with it unless you recognize it. Like, you have to call it out. Just like anything, if you want to do some mental health and get through something, you're not going to be able to, like, the first step is recognizing it. So that's where you should start. So if the other two want to jump in from here, that would
Well,
but it's a challenge. I think we all have it. We all face it. Or I'm just saying I face it. You know, like I see all these people, these very impressive people on this panel, and like, I'm like, why am I here? You know, like, I'm not going to post on LinkedIn, you know, like, why would I do that? But now realizing that this is a thing, this is a word that's been out there and people are talking about it. That's important for it to be out there and talked about it. But, you know, once it's out there and you know it, then you can, you know, address it better.
Yeah, and I loved it. Thank you, Tim. I love Maddie when you said, you know, yeah, you know, I deserve to be there. Like, you get to a point where you have to say. So I used this example when we were talking. I don't know if it was with you, Maddie, or Trish, or Tim, but I had a point in my career, and I always laugh back. And I had the great honor of sitting around the governor's table, only 5 of us every single morning. And he had this habit of, or not habit, a practice of putting out a big problem or a big topic, you know, just kind of, and it was part of him thinking through like social policy, this, that, and the other. And I remember the first month or so, he would go around the table and ask each one of us, the 5, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And it could have been anything from child welfare, it could have been really whatever, transportation policy. That was not my department. That wasn't my responsibility. And I remember, you know, just feeling so inadequate because I was like, well, I don't know about this type of policy. So, you know, and I'm watching my colleagues and they're just, you know, I'm sitting there saying to myself, I don't even know what they're saying. I'm like, they're just like talking off the top of their heads. But I was sitting there feeling like, oh my goodness, we talk about straight up imposter syndrome. Do they know something I don't know? That was the way my imposter syndrome showed up. Do they know something I don't know? And it's funny, it was actually the governor one day who pulled me aside and he gave me that mentoring moment when he said, look, listen, Lily, you're at the table because I want you at the table and you have something to give. And you don't need to know everything, but I respect your intuition. And so I really want to hear what you have to say. And that for me was such a gift because it allowed me to not feel like I had to pretend like I know everything, but that I knew enough to be able to contribute to the conversation. So Trish, you brought up imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I don't know, like my informal list of ways of beating imposter syndrome. I mean, I think that I've been very lucky that I haven't always worked in places that have been good for me or have been my people. But I think when when imposter syndrome was like really weighing heavily on me, I'm very thankful that my boss would, when I was like going off to some speaking gig or something, he would actually text me, you're Trish, and then he used a curse word, Fontanilla, you're amazing, you got this. Like he would do that when he saw me really nervous in the office and on the way off to speak at an event or a panel. So having cheerleaders, having people that like can hype you up, I think is really important. Mentoring those young women, the middle school and high school girls, you know, having these opportunities to talk about things that I've learned and have them ask me questions was really great. Because even when at that point in my life, when I first started doing it, which was about maybe 9 years ago, I wasn't doing any peer mentorship, but being able to answer their questions, I'm like, oh, I did actually learn a lot from that last project. Oh, I do actually know that thing. But it's really, I think when there's a certain point where you just stop holding yourself up to other people and comparing yourself up to other people's lives and experiences, that has been really helpful to me. And then also not necessarily caring about the haters. I've definitely, again, as a woman of color in tech, heard some stuff about like, oh, you're just here because you're the woman that's on this panel. And I, you know, there's some times where I definitely internalized it, and that's when, you know, you start feeling the weight. But then you're like, well, why should I be impressing this person that wasn't even asked to be on the panel at all? Like, why am I taking that information versus always, you know, woman or person of color comes up to me and is like, thank you for being on this panel. Like, I'm so happy to see someone that can talk about things that this panel would not have been able to talk about if you weren't there. So it is a lot of protecting your energy in any way you can. So, you know, when you have this imposter syndrome, like feeling, surrounding yourself with people that love and care about you and want you to succeed. I mean, it is good to get, again, constructive criticism is great, but I found that when I was like in the like the deep hole of imposter syndrome, I was taking in comments from people that I didn't work with, or like I wasn't going to work with in the future. And why would I ever try to impress those people? And it is hard, you know, especially during the pandemic. You might be alone in your place, your dorm, wherever, and there's a lot of things you have a lot of time to think about all the things you could do or you should be doing. And this person's, you know, making bread and learned 3 languages in the pandemic, but they haven't gone through the same experiences you've gone through. So the protection of energy, I think, has been like the most important thing to me, is surrounding myself with people that believe in me and care about me, and recognizing, you know, like Tim said, like that's the first step, because otherwise it's, you know, you just think something's wrong with you, but it's actually something that everybody, even if they don't vocalize it, has gone through at some point in their career.
Trish, that's amazing. Colleen, thank you for that question. You're absolutely right. I think, you know, you don't always have to be you're not going to get filled by, you may not always be filled by your work environment, that's life. And so that's why it's good to have, we talked about advisory committees, personal advisory committees, or there are other parts of your life that can fill that. So I think that's very, very important. But also, you know, one mantra that I say to myself, I think someone asked about a mantra. Yes, is that I tell myself that that I'm smart. Now, I may not be the smartest person in the room. I may not be the most brilliant person in the room, but I'm damn smart. And so if it's not working for me, then frankly, you know, it's not working. And I know that sounds oversimplistic, but I'm like, okay, if you can't explain something to me, or if I can't succeed in this role and we're not having clear, like, then it's not just me that is the problem, that there's maybe something larger. And so that's kind of my little mantra. I'm like, damn it, I'm smart enough. So I want to
I was going to jump in with a small advice that I received, a little bit similar to that, but that sort of operate as if you're running your own production company. Like no matter what business, like company you represent, like brand you work for, like it is Maddie Breland Productions, and you can't be an imposter in your own company. So if you are just going with that mindset and kind of like what Trish was saying about like your energy and protecting yourself, I think if you surround yourself with the support that you need, and reminding yourself when you do have those imposter syndrome moments, which I saw someone comment that it comes in waves. It totally does. I have those some days where I'm going to call someone and I'm like, oh, like, are they going to want to talk to me? Like, why would they talk to me? And it's like, no, it's Maddie Breland Productions. I'm calling them. They should be grateful that I'm talking to them. I have so many important things to say, and then you just you hype yourself up and you get through it, and you pat yourself on the back. So finding those little victories and things to fulfill you, whether it's to support that company or to support your own company, your own brand in your head. So
yeah, I like it's so nice, like to kind of hype yourself up. That's a good one thing that I kind of want to add on to this is I don't know where I heard it recently, probably a podcast or somewhere, about the chatter in your head. Like we actually all have it. It's part of what makes us human. Some of it is good. Like if I say 5 + 5, we all know 10, like we probably did the math in our head. Even at Emerson, we did the math in our heads. So that chatter is good. Where it gets bad is when, and kind of plays into imposter syndrome, is when the chatter is negative and like doesn't hype you up the way that Maddie was just talking about. And I actually think Megan kind of talks about it here. This could be some chatter that's saying, oh, it's been a long time since I've reached out, so why would I want to reach out? Like that's, you don't have to say that. You can go ahead and like say, I have something of value and I want to ask a question, and whoever I want to reach out to, you already had a connection. So I think it's important to, again, recognize those differences because they're both there. And once you can recognize those differences, then you can strengthen the ones that isn't creating a false narrative, right? Like putting yourself down, or, those type of things that are playing into the imposter syndrome. So
Tim, thank you. I was going to move on to Megan's question. So that was like a perfect pull through.
I heard you. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Just because we're getting to the end, and I just feel like we need to acknowledge a couple of things, right? One is, what about folks that are sitting in the audience saying, we talked earlier about I'm an introvert versus an extrovert, that may find a little bit more challenging, painful to reach out. And then we layer that in the context of this pandemic. That this has been a very different way of having to connect with people. And Megan, by the way, yes, reach out to whoever you want to reach out to. This is the time. People, I do believe, are looking for connection. But what are your thoughts around, those that may not come as naturally to reach out to strangers or one removed?
And I can hop in. I mean, a little bit of what you were saying, people are looking for a connection right now. We're all stuck at home and we're able to, at least in LA, it feels like there's this, you have access to a little bit more time. You're not commuting as much, and within that, there is time to pay it forward and to volunteer your advice and your experience to others. And why not? Like, I think in terms of, reaching out to people, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, it's, do you see that you can offer value and that person can potentially offer value to you in your life and what you want to do with it. And, if you don't do it, I say this to myself a lot, if I don't do it, it's not happening. There's not going to be some magical spell that all of a sudden, the genie's just going to grant me this connection with this person. If no action is taken, nothing is received. So I say, why not? People are completely open and ready, and some people will respond, some people won't respond, but that's okay. That's the path that was laid out for you. And if you don't do anything, nothing will move forward. So just keep yourself going during this time is what I can say.
Thank you. Trish?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, I think we can kind of get in our head when people don't respond to us. And the fewer people you reach out to, the more you obsess over the few that you reached out to. So quantity can actually be a little bit helpful when you're trying to get yourself out there. Because if you just reach out to 3 people and all 3 people said no, then you're like, oh, the world, like there's no entryway for me in the universe. And I think, you know, I'm thinking back to, I did the LA program, and I think I was one of the last people to get my internship, but I got one of the like coveted internships at HBO Films. It was one of the few that were paying pretty well to be an intern. And the moment I think that clicked for me is everybody starts somewhere. I think, you know, growing up in the East Coast, like I kind of was around some sort of media scene here, but going out to LA was like very daunting for me. And, you know, you see all these people, you know, on screen, you're like, these people are movie stars, but it's just like everybody starts somewhere. So there are definitely gonna be people that don't pay it forward. I'm gonna be real about that. They're just people that are gonna say, no, you have to work up and do all the things I did to get here. But there's also a great group of people that you'll see in Emerson too, that are like, I want to make it easier for the people so it wasn't as hard for me coming up. And if you have that mindset of like, this person, before they were a CEO, before they were a VP, before they got to where they are, they went to school, or maybe they didn't even go to school for this, and they had to figure things out. And so I think, you know, recognizing like these people aren't superheroes, they're not, you know, they're human like everybody else, and, you know, doing the outreach that way. And then also the tip I always give people is when you're looking people up, whether it's IMDb or LinkedIn, et cetera, looking through their LinkedIn, and there's always something human or something about someone's interests that you can put in there outside of just doing the work stuff. And it one makes you look like you did some research, but also you get to connect with people in a way that other people aren't connecting. Maybe they mention their favorite nonprofit. Maybe they mention they love to golf. Maybe they mention, there's always going to be something that you'll find either on their social, in their portfolio, in their interests, that you can connect with them as a human. And for folks that like hate the word networking, I also, we just talked about this before everybody came in, like who actually likes to network. But if there's a way for you to connect with people that makes them more human, that is good for you, but it's also good for them as well, because then they're just like, oh, this is a person that wants to learn, but they want to connect with me as a person, like as a human as well. So that's always a tip I give to people is like, yes, there's the work thing, but there's a way, just remember they're human. They're like everybody else. They started somewhere, and there's a way for you to connect with them outside of the work stuff too.
Thank you, Trish. And we're almost at the end. We're gonna do some rapid fire questions. I know, Jessica, I don't know if you want to read the questions if I missed them. And Trish, I do have to give you some mad props for saying if you only sent it out to 3 people and 2 people, like, you know, don't return. I mean, I'm like that, Trish, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. So thank you for that. Jessica, what are the questions that I missed? Did you want to read them or?
Okay, let's see. So as far as any other questions, and I think you touched on it, all of you in some way touched on it, but it was a little bit about keeping the relationships alive. It touched on, I think, a little bit of what Megan mentioned about not forcing things, but I do think a common concern is, well, how do I keep this going in a way that is authentic and natural and not just like, hey, want to say hi, you know, making it more real.
Excellent.
I mean, definitely, you know, looking into what that person is doing, what's the latest in their lives, and trying to use that to connect with like, oh, I saw this, oh, I, you know, read this and it reminded me of you, like kind of having a more organic way to start the conversation. And also I wouldn't put so much pressure on yourself that you need to like on a regular basis reach out to this person. You know, like if 3 months have gone by, fine. If 6 months have gone by, sure. Like that's how mentorships are supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like this regularly scheduled thing all the time. So if you don't have anything to say to them, maybe you don't reach out to them, you know, like it's kind of, it just go with the flow and then let it like feel more natural.
And the difference, I mean, this is the difference. This is not a transactional relationship. I think if people can shed that when they try to engage in having the mentor mindset or being open to mentoring, the first thing you've got to shed is that it's a transactional relationship, that you put a quarter in the Coke machine and the Coke comes out. It really is ways to find like authentic connection, because you know, I said earlier, you want these folks to be more invested than just what's in front of you at that moment. I mean, when it really works, it does become something that 4 or 5 months, 6 years, 1 year later, you're able to reconnect in a way. I mean, that's the beauty of it. So, Jessica, were there any other? Oh, Trish, please.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, for prompts for people to do outreach, whenever I see an article about something that we talked about, I'll send that along. Again, not always reaching out when you need something, finding ways to celebrate people. So especially on LinkedIn, birthdays, work anniversaries, I try to do video when I can. Any big news at their companies. So sometimes if there's people that are like higher up on my list and I'm trying to just stay on their radar, celebrating, you know, a release, funding, et cetera, but making sure that not every time you reach out to them, you're asking them for something and there's like celebratory moments. And I think like Tim too, I actually have Google reminders, spreadsheets, just because what is time anymore? And so making sure that, especially in the business world, I do quarterly is like kind of how I think, but making sure that you're not always reaching out to them with an ask, I think is really important. Even if they don't respond to you, just like making sure that you're celebrating them so that when they go and look for that message that does have the ask, there's like 3 other messages that are like, congratulations, you're amazing, you're awesome. And there is more of a relationship there than the transaction of, I need a thing, can you give me the thing?
Thank you. Jessica,
I think, yeah, I was just going to add just really quick, know your interests. So your interests will align with theirs so that you have more to talk about, right? Like it's transactional when you want the Coke, but if you know that you have an interest in how a Coke is made, there's a longer conversation there. So know your interests first, and then you'll have a better connection.
Yeah. If you notice that they like knitting and you're like, hey, yeah, I love knitting too, and you don't even know how to hold the needles, don't do that. Don't reach out. So.
Yeah, or pets. Pets is a big one. I like pets. You like pets. You know, just whatever it is. It doesn't. Yeah, whatever it is.
So I don't know, Jessica, if there were any more questions. Oh,
I did the typical Zoom of muting myself, which actually is a good plug for the rest of the events happening during Emerson Week, one of which is about that topic of speaking up, which all of you did. Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful, full conversation about relationships and just connecting with people. And so Trish, gang, you all were wonderful. Everyone out there, remember this site. Jenny has also put it in the chat, emerge.emerson.edu. So to start practicing and, you know, putting into—
What was that website again? Just I didn't catch.
It's emerge.emerson.edu. It's become one of the words I say almost every day now, but yes, for all of you to get out there and start talking to people, introducing yourselves and enjoying yourselves. If anything, enjoy this. You are meeting new people and they are meeting you. So that's a really important thing to remember. So another thing I just want to plug for the rest of the week, we have a ton of great Emerson Week events going on, but also after this, and Trish, after talking with you, I would totally change the title now. It's a networking open office hours I'm sharing with everyone. So from 4 to 5, if anyone has questions about, I'm going to call it relationship building, feel free to hop into the Zoom room at 4 o'clock. But all of you have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you all.